So what we're going to do now is deal with what's called polynomials. Polynomials, poly means many, nomials. So we did monomials last section. Monomials have no addition signs or subtraction signs. So when we add addition or subtraction signs, we get what's called polynomials. So if we look at our first example here, we have two monomials separated by a subtraction sign. So we do have a polynomial, and the degree is taking, adding now the exponents. So we have an exponent of 1, we have an exponent of 2, and the highest one is our degree. So in this case, it's 2. Because there are two monomials, we have what's called a binomial. Bi meaning 2. Now let's look at our next one. It has no letters, but it does have a letter that with an exponent of 0, so we really have an x with an exponent of 0. So yes, it is a polynomial. It has a degree of 0, and this is what's called a constant. Oh, not a constant, my fault. It's called a constant, but it's also a monomial. And our last one, or next one, I mean, we have a negative exponent. Well, the negative exponent means the letter goes to the bottom, so this goes to the bottom. Then once we have a letter in the denominator, we don't have a polynomial. So this is not a polynomial. It does not have a degree, and it's not one of these. Our last one, we don't have any letters in the bottom. So we have a monomial, 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 monomial. So this is poly, there's many of them, so this is a polynomial. And the degree is, we have a 3 exponent, a 1 exponent, a 1 exponent, and a 0. The highest one is 3. And because we have to combine like terms anytime we can, so this becomes 6x cubed plus 5x plus 3. And if you count how many we have 1, 2, 3. So we have what's called a trinomial. Standard form, it means taking the highest exponent and putting it first and putting them down in order. So our highest exponent is 5, so you have 4x to the 5th power, and then our next one would be a positive 3x squared, and our next one would be a minus 7x. So this is what's called standard form, decreasing order, and the leading coefficient of this would be 4. So the answer to this question, leading coefficient, is whatever's in front after we put it in order. So our leading coefficient is 4. Let's look at our next one. So we look at our exponents. We have a 4, 3, and I'm going to put my 4. So if that's a negative 2, once again, I want you to identify this as a negative sign, not a subtraction. Then we put our next one, and if we continue in order, we would get a positive 5y, and then a minus 9. And once we have it in standard form, we look at what is in front, and so our leading coefficient is a negative 2. Just like our leading coefficient up here is a 4. To add polynomials, all we're going to do is add like terms. So we have to look for the same exponent. So we have a 2x squared, and over here we have a negative 4x squared. So if I add those, I get a negative 2x squared. And if I look at the x, the only thing that's similar is the 6, so if I add the 5 and the 6, I get 11x. And I have a negative 7 and a positive 3. When I add them, I get a negative 4. By adding the highest exponent, I automatically put it in standard form, which is what we want to be able to do. And I added like terms only, so this would be the answer. Look at our next problem. So I'm looking at that y cubed, and over here I have a 2y cubed. And so by adding that, I made 3y cubed. Then I'm going to look at squares. So I have a 4y squared, but I don't have a square here, so it doesn't get added to anything. Then I look at the y's. I have a 3y, and I have a negative 4y, so I have a negative 1y. And then I have a negative 5 and a positive 8, so that when added, gives me a positive 3. And it's already in standard form. Subtracting can be a little bit tricky unless you do one thing, and that is everything that's going to be subtracted. So everything over here, I'm just going to change its sign. So I'm going to rewrite the first part, but I'm going to now change to a negative 4x, a positive 5, and a negative 3x squared. By doing that, I now can just combine like terms or add like terms. So look at our like terms. My highest exponent is a negative or positive 2x squared and a negative 3. So I get a negative 1x squared. And then if I look at my next negative 2x, a negative 4x, I get a negative 6x. And if I look at my constants, 3 and 5, I get 8. The tricky part is you must change signs on subtraction, otherwise you'll have the wrong answer. Let's look at this next problem. So I have a subtraction, so everything right here is going to change signs. So I'm going to rewrite it, 7p plus 4p cubed minus 8, and I'm going to have that a negative p squared, a negative 2, and a positive 9p. So now once I have it all changed, I just combine like terms, which add. So I go to my highest, which is 4, 3p. There's nothing, so I just write it. Then I go to my squared, so I have a negative 3p squared, so it's a negative 3p squared. Then I go to my p's, and I have 16 of those. And then finally, I have a negative 8 and a negative 2, which gives me a negative 10. So there's my answer in standard form from subtraction.